I work in 15-minute increments. And those 15-minute increments might include like my dinner and my family time and my sleep time. It's just more 15-minute increments. But then it's being able to do this thing, concentrate, get that done, close it off, do the next thing. And it's like a personality discipline to make those things happen.
Hello, this is the Casual Author Podcast. I'm Dan Kenner, sci-fi and fantasy author. I've got a few things on my plate, as do you, and I want to help you be productive and have a positive mindset as you navigate your passion for writing while managing life's expectations. For more information about the podcast or to access my free guide, How to Have the Most Stellar Writing Sessions, head to thecasualauthor.com. Let's dive in. Hey there, it's Dan Kenner with another episode of The Casual Author. Today is Wednesday, November 26, 2025 as I record this, and this is episode number 157 of the podcast. Today we're talking about mastering time management practices with Charles Hack. I'm excited to have another interview. I talked about doing solo episodes for the past few weeks, and that I would be getting back into having interviews. So we talk a lot about how he masters certain time management techniques for himself, revolving around 15-minute increments, what else he has done to kind of selectively change what he focuses on with his authoring to really hone in on the best practices and things that he thinks will be beneficial for his own, where he is in his author journey, as well as where he wants to go in his author journey. So it's a great conversation. You'll want to stick around for that. But I am recording this pre the holiday weekend. In the United States, it is Thanksgiving, so I won't be working. I will be working on some authoring things, but probably not as much as I would normally, because holidays are busy, and that's a good thing. It's a very positive thing, but just trying to get ahead of myself and make sure that I can record the intro before then. So before we get into it, I want to thank everybody who has watched and anybody who has commented on any of the episodes. As you know, it is available everywhere in any podcast streaming application and YouTube. So I want to thank Spencer for his comment on YouTube. He mentions potentially adjusting the way I approach the podcast to make sure I not only give the tips and tricks, but also explain the reasoning behind them and how they have worked for me. Excellent piece of feedback, and I'll definitely do my best to add that into future episodes. Because, sometimes it might appear, at least to me, as the podcast host, that something is understandable, but that might not actually be true. So I appreciate the piece of feedback. Definitely comment on the show notes or on any of the shows. Let me know where you're listening or anything you'd like to hear more of, because that's what I'm here for, is just to take my experience and translate it into a way so that we all feel like we're not alone. All of us have other things going on with respect to our writing. It's unlikely that you'll find authors who don't have 1,000 other things going on, whether it be kids, job, garden, pets, emergencies, health considerations, care for other individuals. Like it's so rare to find someone just like, I just get to write and do authoring all day. So there's always something drawing our attention away. And that's the point of these conversations, to focus on those of us who still have that aspiration to write and figuring out a way to work around the other things that go on in life and have a positive perspective on that. So that's just an extra reminder of why we're here. But in terms of updates, it hasn't been all that long since I recorded the last update, so this might be relatively brief from a homestead and family perspective. We still haven't seen any effects from the yearling, or our year-old calf, having eaten that extension cord. He's behaving fine. So I'm grateful, but also hopefully the bomb doesn't drop at any point. I will say that we've been having some troubles with mastitis with our milk cow. So if you're not familiar with what that is, it's essentially the udder has 4 sections, and each one has a teat off of it. That's where the milk comes out. And mastitis is when there's an infection or swelling that happens in one or all of those quarters. So we've had a couple of them become really swollen and painful to her. And obviously it's not fun, right, for her, because it hurts when you milk her, and you have to milk her. You can't just not touch it. That's not how it works. So we're trying to identify what's going on. I don't think it has anything to do with us, and more so to do with, if they lay inside manure, it can get bacteria in there, or there's all sorts of things that could have happened. But I think we're moving out of this last mastitis phase, so she's not in as much pain anymore. She's obviously healthy, which is great, but the biggest thing you have to be careful of is it could make the milk not safe to consume. So we're obviously make sure everything's tested and we're keeping a watch on it. And we're not consuming anything that's not good for us. But still, it's just something. It's another thing, right? Here I am taking care of everything, and then there's just this thing, this thought of mastitis in your cow that draws your attention away and makes it difficult to work on, creative work. So that's going on, which isn't great. Pigs, not much change there. They're still what they are. They're kind of crazy, but we're trying to take a minute to enjoy a little bit of a reset week, because the last couple of weeks we've had tons of activities, we've had archery competitions. My children have been in choir. We signed them up for a homeschool choir where they get homeschool kids together and they learn songs and they have a performance. The performance was last week and it was incredible. They did a really, really good job. After 12 weeks of practicing, we'll probably sign them up for it again because they just had a blast with it. But yeah, there's just this 2-week period where it was just we were at home a lot. I was trying to work full time, but also we had all these appointments, and I was watching the kids that get left behind while my wife takes the ones who have appointments to their appointments, and it was just chaotic. So we're doing a little bit of a reset this week to try to reground ourselves and not feel overwhelmed with everything that's constantly going on. So looking forward to that. But I think the most fun part of Thanksgiving for us, which is the holiday this week, is the kids. My wife lets each child pick a pie flavor, and then she will have one-on-one time with that child to make that pie. So yes, we have 7 kids. So yes, that means we get 7 full-size pies. It's a lot, but I mean, there's a lot of us, and it's just a fun tradition. So they're actually making the pies as we speak, which is really fun. It's just a tradition, and it's made the holidays quite exciting for them. We'll hopefully get a little reset this week and jump back into it next week. But in terms of authoring, I will start out with kind of an exciting update. I mentioned a few podcasts ago about the Kickstarter. I partnered with 21 other fantasy and sci-fi authors to put together 22 short stories about honor, or revolving around honor, and we created a special edition version, 2 versions actually, and put it on Kickstarter. So that Kickstarter has since closed, but I think there are still late pledges available. So if you're listening to this today, you can probably still access the link and pledge if you want a reward, at least probably for the next few days or 7 days. So jump on that if you want to. We actually were able to raise $71,000 for that Kickstarter, which is incredible. Obviously, there's the production costs into the artwork and the cover design and everything that will need to be paid for. But I mean, that's incredible. $71,000. Thank you for those who did back it. I don't have versions. I can't show you on the camera. But there's this beautiful cover with foil, custom-made art all throughout it for some of the stories, and pages are custom. There's a ribbon in the book. I'll have to check it out at the website. It shows you what the features are. Definitely go check it out if you're interested. There may be an opportunity to buy them directly from me if I'm able to get some author copies of this special edition book, but more on that later. So it's just a really great experience. It's a project that's been going on for a long time. Very grateful for Z.S. Diamante. He's the author who took point on this whole thing. Transparently, he did most of the work, so thank you to him. I know it was an immense amount of work, but just really cool to see what can come out of collectively working with a bunch of authors. In terms of other updates, I'm really excited to say that December 1st will be the day that you can access my next short story. This short story is pantsed. I made it up as I went. That's how I write all my stories. I start with a character and just kind of see what happens. This one came out more exciting than I expected. So it's almost like if you've seen the Mr. Megorium's Wonder Emporium movie, it's similar to that ish, but with a library and kind of like a wizened library owner hoping to pass on the ownership to someone else. And anyway, it's a very exciting story. I think you'll really enjoy that. So on December 1st, once again, you can access that at my Ream Stories. It's reamstories.com/Dan Kenner. I'll put the link in the show notes. And that, plus all the other short stories that I've published over the last 8 months, are accessible for just a couple dollars a month. If you're interested in reading fun stories that I discovered as I wrote them, then they're all there. You also get advanced chapters to the books that I'm currently working on. So there's a lot. There's a lot to access. I have some excellent people who love getting those chapters every week and reading through them. So currently, the chapters that I'm putting on are the 4th book of the Hidden Heritage series. This is Fairy Blooded. This is from the perspective of Jared. So he's this half Samoan, half fairy teenager. It's kind of funny how that all works out. But, the troubles of being able to read minds and, the other baggage that comes with being half fairy. So you see him a lot throughout the books. He's one of the main characters in the first book, but you don't get to be inside his head until the fourth book. So it was just a blast to write his story. So that's those are going on every week on Tareem Stories. Additionally, I did write an epic fantasy story. It's the first book of a 4-book series. I know you're probably rolling your eyes, Dan. What are you doing? But I don't know. There's lots going on. So this is called The Etcher's Plight. It is quite a big book, and those publish every 2 weeks, Tareem Stories. So you get quite a lot, right? There's a lot that comes out, and your support is greatly appreciated. You can check out the tiers if you're interested. But, this is just my hope to deliver great, fun, clean fantasy, both epic and low fantasy, YA fantasy to you more quickly than I can publish them. Because the publishing process is a little bit challenging. I do work through it and I do publish the books, but I want to make sure you can enjoy them right away or as quickly as possible. So that's where that comes from. I'm still in the finalization stage for the files for the 3rd book of the series. So that's Dwarf Blooded. By the way, all of those chapters are up on Ream. So if you subscribe to Ream, you can actually access them right away. I will point that out. Or you can wait till it's published, which is also fine with me. So once that's all finalized and get everything uploaded, it's just very tedious. I'm working on that today. What I didn't mention last week is that I'm also in flight in writing a book with my 8-year-old son. It's called Camp Power. It's a middle grade, low fantasy book. He came up with the story himself. So I will say it's actually quite impressive. It's around, he had this grand idea of these 8 to 10-year-olds receive a letter to go to this summer camp where they, get awarded with essentially like superhero powers. And, there's a lot of intrigue and danger that goes into it. They don't really know why, and it unfolds before you. So just a lot of it's a very light, fun story. He apparently has plans for 4 books. We haven't talked about the other books. We're still just trying to work through the one. But this is just me trying to help my son. He's so excited about storytelling. He coincidentally has dyslexia, so writing and reading for him is very challenging. He's one of the most imaginative kids. He's so incredible, but he just really struggles with that writing and reading piece, and I know it frustrates him to no end. So this is my attempt to help him feel really grounded and excited about storytelling, even though the writing and reading piece is coming a little slower than he hopes. But he's picking it up. He's starting to read very well. I'm proud of him, even though I know it's challenging. So more on that. I haven't published them anywhere. I think there's a lot of edit that needs to happen. You can imagine the brain of an 8-year-old, adorable, imaginative, very scattered. I'm trying to help kind of rein it in and put it into words, type it out in kind of a cohesive, flowing way. So more on that later, but you'll hear little updates here and there. We're probably about, I would say probably halfway through the first book. So that's exciting. Hopefully I'll be able to make progress on that. So I think that's it, really, from the author update perspective. So lots going on, but very exciting. Of course, if you want to have any comments or whatnot, you can email me at dan@thecasualauthor.com. I've mentioned this before. Taking a step to the side, if you'd like to join me on the podcast, head to thecasualauthor.com. There's a pitch form. Or if you just want to hear more of a specific topic, or you're hoping to learn more about anything, really, you have questions about my homestead, about the kids, or about life in general, I'm happy to answer them. Just let me know, and you can either email me or comment on any of the videos, and I appreciate that. So that being said, we're going to go ahead and shift over to the interview portion with Charles. Charles Hack is the author of the space warfare group sci-fi/space opera books and the Hank Lynn mysteries. After writing for over 20 years, his first published novel is Into the Darkness. He currently serves as a pastor in his hometown and has a master's degree in systematic theology. Hey, Charles, how are you doing today?
Hey, great. Nice to see you, Dan. See you in person.
Yeah, seriously. We've been working on an anthology together, kind of on the side, which we'll talk about here in just a minute. But yeah, it's great to see your face and meet you. But before we get into anything, I'd love to ask you a couple questions just to get into it. First off, what kind of things do you write, and how long have you been writing?
Yeah. So I've been writing for over 20 years. It's probably, I've kind of lost track now, probably like 24 years, maybe. Like I've been writing longer than, a lot of our author friends have been alive.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I started, it was kind of a hobby. I started when my kids were tiny and I would I had this little office in the closet of my hallway of our small house when we were first married and had our first child. And I would get up super early and I'd work on stories, short stories and things. And it's just become more and more from a hobby to something serious to a business. And I started out writing what I would call political thrillers, but I never published anything. My first published book was this one over my shoulder, which was it's a military sci-fi space opera. Some describe it as like Tom Clancy meets Star Wars. So you have the government and the conspiracies and military and special forces in a Star Wars like world, minus the Force, of course. And so I write, that's been my main focus. But then in the last couple years, I've also started writing mysteries. And my latest mystery came out this week called Deliver
Nice.
Us from Evil, which is a Lake Tahoe based small town sheriff kind of murder mystery. If anybody's seen like the Joe Pickett series or Longmire or something like that, it has that kind of feel to it.
That's really cool. I've really started reading mysteries recently. I'm usually a sci-fi fantasy type of person. That's what I write. That's what I read. And I tell people it's not because of lack of interest. It's because of time. Right? Like there's so many books out there. It's just like my list of purely fantasy sci-fi books is so long that
Yeah.
I haven't even been able to branch out all that much. But excited to hear that you're kind of branching into mystery. What made you switch or kind of decide to step into the mystery side of things?
Yeah. So I actually was more geared that direction originally when I was
Okay.
writing. Most of my short stories and some of my early non-published stuff was mystery based. And I ended up in sci-fi kind of by accident, which sounds
Okay.
crazy. How do you write a, 130,000 word sci-fi book by accident? But it really is. And so mystery is kind of more of what I've wanted to do. But I've had enough success and interest from readers in the sci-fi stuff that it's really motivated me to make that series more significant, and not just do a couple books and get out, but to make a real point of following through with the story arcs and complete the series at some point, and maybe keep going. I'm not sure, but I always wanted to write mystery. Some of my as strange as it sounds, I'm a sci-fi author, but I don't read really any sci-fi, as funny as that sounds. But in limited fantasy, guys like Brandon Sanderson, of course, and Wheel of Time, and some of that stuff over the years. But I'm not big in either of those. What I read the most are thrillers and mysteries. So I'm enjoying writing in that world. But then when I go back to my sci-fi world, I just love those characters and the whole thing so much that I can't imagine actually not writing in that world.
I think the great thing is you're an independently published author. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
yeah,
So the great thing is I think there's a little bit less pressure to stay within a specific, I guess you could say, vein or pathway of writing because
yeah.
there's no contracts involved. It's just like, hey, we're writing, kind of following our heart, seeing where that
Yeah.
goes, which can be a good thing or a bad thing, which it
Hmm.
depends on the author and kind of what you want your business to look
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
But I think it's incredible. So you are a full time author today,
I am
full
not a
time
full-time author.
author. Oh, you're not.
Well,
Okay, kind
no.
of. I use air quotes for people not watching the
Yeah.
video.
Yeah.
Full time author.
So I'm publishing at least one or two books a year. It's been two books a year for the last couple of years.
Nice.
Yeah, it's been like the sci-fi and a novella or sci-fi and a mystery, sci-fi mystery kind of thing, alternating. But I actually am a full-time pastor, and so my
Great.
my
That's awesome.
day job is as a minister, Baptist pastor, and that is extremely time-consuming and overwhelming, and as you can imagine. And
Yeah, I can't imagine actually,
yeah,
but I'm sure it does have a lot
yeah,
goes into it
a lot of people stuff, a lot of counseling,
for
a lot
sure.
of heavy emotional stuff, and then writing sermons and
Hmm.
theological classes and stuff. I end up writing every day, so I'll write every single week. I'm writing like a 4,000 word message, and I'm doing that from Monday to Thursday, Monday to Friday kind of thing. But I'm working on my books alongside that in my free time, and so on a certain day, I mean, I spend probably like 10 hours or 8 hours a day on the keyboard,
Hmm.
writing stuff, which will exhaust you over time. It's nice to break it up and go read a book. And even my it's really great. My day job, I get to meet with people, encourage people, read a lot of what I to study, and to write a lot. And so I get to do all those things as a pastor, which is wonderful, reading theology and counseling books and writing messages and things like that.
I think that's really cool. I guess I didn't do enough research on you to have known that. So, but I think no, I think it's incredible because the one thing that anybody who's listening or anybody who's ever aspired to be a writer, it is very unlikely that you won't have tons of other things going on in your life.
Yeah.
Whatever that is looks different for everybody. But you've clearly made writing work, right? You've published what,
Yep.
9 books now? Is it 9, 10, somewhere
Yeah,
around there?
so it would be like nine if we count the little sci-fi serial books that I put out. Um, yeah, they were small. They were like 80 pages, little paperbacks. And at the time when I did those, there seemed to be interest. And I talked to a bunch of other authors and people on social media, and there was a like, yeah, these are great, love it. They didn't sell at all, which was
Mm,
hilarious. And then Amazon.
hilarious.
Yeah,
Something like
ironic.
that.
Everybody's like, these are awesome. And I'm like, great, we're going to do it. And I get them out there, and then it's just crickets for like a year and a
Mm.
half. I think I sold like six. It's just silly. So I give them away now as like promotional stuff. And eventually it's going to be, I'm going to turn that into a novella and publish it, republish it as a full novella. So with that, it would be nine. So I have three full size in the sci-fi with a novella. So that's four. And then I have two two in the mystery series. So six total full, basically full size books that you can get. And then when Amazon changed, they recently changed something with their pricing for small books, where there was like a minimum that you could, and it was, I can't remember now, but when I looked at it, it was like, I can't charge enough because these 80-page little mini books, they're only like a $5 book. Um, and Amazon was going to make me charge like $9.99 for them to break even. And I thought nobody's going to buy that. So I just unpublished them. And it wasn't really, the serial wasn't finished anyway. The episodic story wasn't finished. So my thought is to finish that here soon, and then publish it as an actual novella and to go with the series.
All right. I think that's really
Yeah.
that's great to hear that, right? Because I think the cool thing about these podcasts, these conversations, is you can't understand what the day to day or in and out looks like just from looking at an
Yeah.
Amazon page. We as authors see other people who've published say 10 books or 15 or 3 books, and we may look at ourselves and be like, well, I haven't accomplished that, or we look at that and think like, oh, they're doing better or whatnot. But hearing your journey, we'll talk more about that journey itself, but
Hmm.
the things that you've gone through, be like, yeah, Amazon changed things. We can't always account for Amazon changing rules. We can't account for
Yeah.
everything. So just kind of have to make some switches here and
And
there
be, yeah,
to
you have
deal
to
with it.
be like in it. You have to be
Yeah, that's
aware
true.
of what's happening and not get caught up in stuff. Like, I mean, with as busy as we are, I just had a situation where my website, I use Squarespace for the website. It's not a great website, but it's doing the job right now. And um, they changed some fonts. And it was like, there's these warnings of like, if you don't change your fonts, it's going to change automatically. And I didn't think anything of it, didn't really pay any attention. Well, what it did is it changed the fonts in my order form to order books on my website. And I get some orders through the website for paper autograph paperbacks and stuff. And I was hearing from customers, they're like, I cannot order, it won't work. And so those author things of like, man, it's a business and you're trying to do life. And life is busy, and you got to stop and say like, okay, why is my website site not working? And I got to go figure that out now. And I don't have a staff of, I don't have a website, a web designer, any of that stuff. So it can be complex at times, and it makes you want to sometimes just like minimize everything to
Mm-hmm.
what you can do well. And I am doing some of that, which would be interesting to talk about in the context of your podcast, of like what we do, and we see other people doing things that are pretty time consuming, to be
Yep.
honest.
Actually, I mean, this is a perfect segue into that, not
Yeah,
necessarily about the
yeah,
podcast, but just talking about like how making it work, right? You've been writing for 20 years. You've clearly made it work, whatever that made it work looks like, because
yeah,
you've published a
yeah.
bunch of books, right? Not necessarily quantity itself is definitely something to be admired, whether,
Mm,
the timing and whatnot. I
yeah.
guess I'm curious to know, how do you make it work, right? You've got your pastoring, you've got the writing, you've got everything that goes into that, which once again, I can't imagine. What do you do to make it work? Because clearly you're still here, right? A lot of people start
Yeah.
writing and then they give up, or
Oh,
they pause and they never get back into it, right? So how
yeah.
have you made it work?
And there are people who give it up because they're not selling, or because
Right.
it's costly and all that stuff. And so I think the way that I make it work by my personality is I'm a very regimented person. Like
Mm,
I'm scheduled. Like yourself, I'm a pantser when it comes to writing, but I'm extremely diligent in my time management so that I can do certain things. And so I think that's part of my personality or training. So my background is, I went to school as an electrical engineer, at the University of Nevada, got an electrical engineering degree while working as a low level engineer, working 32 hours a week, and I got an engineering degree on top of that. And there were times when I was like on traveling for a project, and I'm in a hotel faxing my homework to my professor. That shows how old I was. I was faxing it, and then run off to a meeting because I had to be there at this in another city and stuff. And so I learned how to do school and work. And then when I entered ministry later, and I did seminary. I did an online seminary program, through one of the seminaries that is designed to train pastors in their church. So it's not like just Joe Blow sitting here getting a master's in theology. It's a intentionally designed for pastors who can't leave because they're serving in their church, to make sure that they can get educated and stuff. So I started that, and so I was working as an engineer part time, being a pastor part time, and working on my seminary degree, and I was writing kind of as a hobby on the side, and so learning how to work. What I always say is I work in 15-minute increments,
okay.
and those 15-minute increments might include like my dinner and my family time and my sleep time. It's just more 15-minute increments, but then it's being able to do this thing, concentrate, get that done, close it off, do the next thing. And it's like a personality discipline to make those things happen. So what I do is, I get up early. um, I'm usually up and at my chair with my coffee at like 6 a.m., and I start, and that's nothing crazy. And I
That's
start,
reasonable. Yeah.
yeah, reasonable. But I make a point, like I go to bed early enough that I can get up at 6, and then I'll work on my writing for as long as I can. As a writer, you probably know there's like this energy where you're like going, and then you fizzle, and once you start to fizzle, it's like a chore. And so
Hmm.
I'll write I'll write as long as I can do it. And then there's a cutoff time, like, okay, well, at 8 o'clock, no matter what, I have to shut that off and run through the shower and get ready and blast off to the office, because maybe I've got an appointment, a counseling appointment, or got to start working on the sermon. So I'll literally have this, like, the clock clicks over, and then that author life is closed, and then I'll be focusing on the next thing, and I'll spend the next whatever 6 8 hours doing, or more, doing ministry stuff, and then that closes, and you go home, and it's family time, and all that. And so I just do that pretty much every day except Sundays. Friday I'm up early writing. Saturday, and Fridays and Saturdays. So Friday's like my family. Friday is my Saturday because we work on Sundays. Um,
All right.
Right. So Sunday is a big, heavy work day for me. Usually exhausted. So many people, so much talking, so much, lunches after, and sometimes meetings and stuff. So And for my for the Lord, not doing the writing those days, just shut that off, focus on Him. But Friday and Saturday, which are like my days off, I'll get up still 5. Sometimes I'll get up at 5 when I know I have the energy, and I'll try to write for like 3 hours and just plow in some words and try to get a lot done. And you just do that and do that and do that and do that and do that, and eventually you get a book out of that.
Just it just appears out of nowhere. No, I think you
Yeah.
brought up a really good point. It's really, I think people forget that it's the incremental view that you must take when it comes to
Hmm.
authoring,
Yeah.
because it's not just me. I know a lot of authors feel this way. You just get excited. You get excited about something. You're like, oh, I just want it now, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But what that does is it kind of like you kind of tire yourself out because you forget that it's those incremental movements that build up and to become the whole. And you got to celebrate that increment, right? Like you said, the fact that you break your time down into 15 increments is incredible. I that's My brain explodes even trying to think of doing
Oh
something
yeah,
like that.
because I
Um,
can plan like as an example, I can say like, okay, at lunch break, like I'm working on sermon, I'm doing stuff, and I've got an appointment at 1, but I'm like, okay, I'll have a lunch break at say 12:30, and from 12:30 to like 12:45, I'm gonna just pop into my ads program, into the Facebook ads thing, and adjust this ad text or change something because I know that has to get done, but where am I going to fit it in? So it's like, okay, I'm going to slot it into that 15-minute slot. And I know I can do that. So I don't think about it until the clock clicks over, and I'm like, okay, lunch break, let me do that, boom, 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 and then close that off and go back to the next thing. And it could be personality or training. I'm not sure, but I recommend it for everybody is to just, even if you have to put it on your little phone calendar or your written calendar of what you're going to do so that every one of those things, and then you just get that lovely, satisfying cross that off the list. There's nothing better than crossing things off your list.
well, I think more people get satisfaction out of that than I do, but
Yeah.
I hear that that's an exciting thing. I'm not much of a list crosser off of, but my
Yeah.
wife definitely is. So, I mean, I think the great thing here, though, is you've recognized your ability to stay within the constraints of those 15-minute blocks. You kind of learned that that works for you. But you also mentioned something that I want to kind of pin or talk a little bit about was the kind of minimization to the things that you know you can slash should do, right? Because I won't go too much into my journey because this is about you, Charles. But, at the beginning, you feel this draw or tendency to want to do everything. And I think every author has to have that moment where they're like, well, this person's doing X and that person's doing Y and this person's doing A, B, and C. And I can see that all of those things are working for them. Therefore, I'm going to try all of them. And then you do, and it's just like, wait, nothing's working. And it's just because
Yes.
you're everywhere, right? Like you're trying to do
Yes.
everything, so nothing you can't sink your teeth into anything really. There's no grounding that you're getting out of any of these. And so you do have to have that kind of pause moment and be like, wait a minute. What do I actually need to do for me? That minimization piece. So I guess when did that happen for you? And
Yeah.
what things did you determine are your minimization lists?
Oh,
If you could
this,
kind of talk through
this
those.
is, man, I wish we as author community and a bunch of us could get together and brainstorm some of this stuff because it's different for everybody.
It
And
is.
for me, what I found is when I first started, well, as I knew I wanted to head towards indie publishing, I was investing tons of time researching how to do it. And I was doing all the podcasts and all the classes and all the studying and reading all the books and became, I would say I became an expert in independent publishing before I published my first book. Now, I didn't have much capital to be able to spend like some other guys. So a good friend of mine made me a free cover. Since then we've recovered, kind of a long story, but he had made, as a gift, he had made a cover for me, and we did editing through friends, and it was like we were just scraping by. But we knew we had to splash with enough, energy and look a certain way in order to look legitimate. That's kind of where we started, and there was enough immediate response in terms of some sales and some interest that we realized, like, and I say we, like my wife and I, as we were like brainstorming all these things, realizing, okay, here's what works for me, which is, I'm terrible with social media at that time, still not great, but Yeah.
I'm not either.
uh, yeah. Running some simple, cheap ads, I was pretty good at figuring that out early on because I had done so much research ahead of time that we were able to like find readers and turn over some sales through some cheap ads, some affordable ads, which then produced some revenue, which then we could run more ads. And that was really interesting because I'm kind of thinking in terms of the long game. Like what I want to do is I want to have like 10 plus books in each of my series so that readers like you build this readership over time, and maybe over time it's a a significant business, um as opposed to like I want everything right now, so I'm going to invest everything I have right now, all my time, all my energy, and then if it doesn't work, then what? So it's long game, little incremental growth, is the way I think. But what happens then is, okay, so I'm in social media, I meet more authors, meet more people online, and they're all doing big time social media stuff, TikTok and Instagram and X, and they're 20,000 followers, and they're doing videos every day, and they've got studios in their house to do these videos, and they're some are doing podcasts, to help promote, to get exposure and promote their books. And I'm looking at all this stuff and I'm like, I cannot fit any of that in.
Mhm.
It's just doing a video for, I remember talking to somebody, who I hope watches this video at some point. She'll know who she is. And we were talking about doing like an Instagram post. And she said, she was like, just put them up there. And I said, well, yeah, but I have to have the time, you gotta like, put the right shirt on, and you gotta get in the right, get the right lighting and get in the right room with the right background, and then you got to record it like 17 times to get it right, and then you got to find time find time to upload it, and then I got to put text on it, and I got to link, and I'm like, it's an hour to do a 30-second video, right? And I don't know if the others are that, they're probably much better at it. But what she said, which I thought was hilarious, is she's like, you don't have to do any of that, you can literally just do a really quick live and let it be raw and be effective. And I'm like, okay, that's an option. That's an option that I wasn't thinking about, because I'm thinking in terms of like, hey, what this author's doing, which is very polished and amazing, and this author is polished and amazing. And so in that minimization, what I've had to do is test a couple things and see, does it sell books? Does it build followers? Does it build readers? And what I found is that like my email list doesn't amount to much anything. My social media following, doesn't really translate to book sales or anything. I'm not sure what it translates to ultimately. Um, and and I'm like, the only thing that sells books in my experience has been, in my specific experience, the only thing that sells books are well thought out and strategic ads that
Mhm.
put my book in front of people who want to buy and read a book like mine. And so for me, it's like, okay, I got to limit. I don't have time for all these things, so I have to. I'm not a full time author. I can't do the videos and have my own podcast and have my own YouTube channel and have my own this and that. All that stuff has to go away, and then just focus on like what's changing on Facebook ads for next couple months that I need to be ahead of. Right. For me, that's like the priorities of trying to figure out what's going to do the most, because I just want to build readership. I want to get my stories into people's hands. Um, and there's a temptation for all of us, I think, to be, um, you know, Instagram, TikTok stars, because it's going to get followers, and maybe that'll translate to books. And then the big one right now, everybody doing Kickstarter. We just did as part of the anthology, the honor anthology. Makes you want to say like, boy, should I do a Kickstarter on my books? But seeing what goes into all that, the expense and the effort, I could tell you, looking at it's so far down the priority list. And I don't even know, with like my readers, would they buy a $50 book, special edition $50 book? They barely buy a $4.99 Kindle book.
It's true.
So
No,
yeah,
no offense, people, but yeah, no, I hear what you're saying, right? Like, I
yeah,
agree. The exact process that you just described is something that I'm constantly thinking through, right?
mm,
Because
yeah,
we didn't even go. If you've been listening to my podcast for a while, you know what I have going on, right? There's kids, there's animals, there's job, there's stuff, right? There's stuff going on. Yeah, the truth of it is, being able to be grounded enough to say, look at something and be like, yeah, you know what, that does or does not work for me. And I think it's hard to stomach, right? Because you're looking at this opportunity, particularly with social media. Let's be honest, it's free marketing. There's potential there. You don't have to pay anything. All you have to do is be there constantly. But the problem is, like you, a 30-second video does take an hour for me. I wish it
Yeah.
didn't, but it does. Like, it's just
Yeah.
every time I'm like, no, I'll just make it quick this time. I get into it. 20 minutes later, I'm like, well, crap. That just took
Yeah.
20 minutes and it was a 10-second video. So it's just, yeah, it really comes
And do you
down
ever feel
to
like also, do you ever feel like when you do that video and you post something that you're like, "Oh wow, my lighting sucks and
every
I don't
time.
look happy and there's a weird, glitch and
Yeah,
everybody's stuff is so polished and mine looks like
absolutely.
I just made it for the first time." And you feel like, "Oh, it's just it's an impossible pursuit."
No, you are not alone in that. I feel the same. And my wife is so funny. She's so helpful, but she'll always watch my videos and be like, yeah, that looks terrible in a good way. Like she says that completely lovingly and it doesn't offend me. I'm like, you know what? You are reminding me why I'm struggling with social media. She's like, well, let me
Yes.
help you. There's lighting because I'm colorblind too, but that's neither here nor there.
Oh
But
gosh, yeah.
like design is way beyond my purview. I'm just not good at seeing things that look aesthetically
Mm,
pleasing. So, anyway, the point being, right, like you said, there's it really comes down to trusting. I think your instinct is a big piece of it,
mm,
right? Something
yeah.
that feels in control. Like for you, it's ads. For
Yeah.
me, transparently, it's podcasting, right? I was telling
Hmm.
before how
Yeah.
I stepped out of the podcast and it just felt wrong because this feels natural. These types of conversations feel natural. They feel real. They feel grounded. And whether or not it actually works is a different question,
It's
but
helpful. They're
it's helpful.
helpful.
I mean,
I mean,
I hope
for
so.
authors, yeah, I
Yeah.
think, I mean, this kind of stuff, having conversations about the craft of writing, the technical, talking about ads, talking about how to produce, how to format, how to choose a cover designer, how to manage your time. Those are so valuable for authors. We need a lot more of that in reality.
Yeah, I think so. And I think there's a lot of ones where, just providing the variety of someone who's a full-time author and is very successful versus someone who's not there yet, but is still writing and aspiring, I think helps provide that full gamut. But anyway, I
Yeah.
appreciate your
Yeah.
insight, hearing your true story and learning about social media and all the various things you've tried that you're stepping into ads and finding various levels of success. I think
Hmm.
that's awesome. I do want to just take a step back and be grateful for the anthology we had the opportunity to
Yes.
be a part of. I think I saw a
Yes.
message in the group chat either from you or someone else kind of being grateful for how we managed to get part of it because yeah, knowing what went into that Kickstarter. For context, those listening, it was a Kickstarter of I think it was 22 of us total.
Yeah. Yeah.
22 authors who wrote sci-fi and fantasy short stories. Another fellow author really organized it all, commissioned art, made beautiful covers, really led the campaign. And it took him so much work. And that is just an extra reminder to me like, I'm so grateful to be part of this, but I'm not sure I'm ready to run my own Kickstarter
Yeah. It was
because
an eye opener.
there's
Yeah.
a lot into it.
Yeah. And those that are in the anthology with us that are like have already done their own Kickstarters and we're
Mm-hmm.
doing things we're in the Discord group with all the authors and there's an Instagram group as well that we all talk. And just hearing what people are doing and juggling and art and this and that, huge expenses up front for some of that stuff was it's eye-opening. It's you learn a lot, and I think I have a better idea of what it would look like to do one. But I don't know. I don't think sci-fi. That's the other thing. Kickstarter seems to be heavily fantasy based,
It's true.
so you might
It
do
is.
better with your fantasy. Um, but what a deal! So the Kickstarter earned $70,000 and like
Crazy.
830 some backers total for the book. That is incredible.
Absolutely way beyond anything that I thought possible.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's once again I've never run a Kickstarter. I've seen them run. You see like the Brandon Sanderson millions of dollars, and then you see other people tens of thousands.
Yeah.
But it was just really cool, right, to be a part of that and just to see these stories. They will be going out to everyone. At this point, it's been closed. Listeners, unfortunately, it has been closed, but maybe there'll be more in the future. Who knows?
I think
Keep an
they
eye
talked
out.
about last night on there's a live video that Zach Diamante did
All
where a
right,
bunch of us popped in. You were in the chat yesterday, I
I
think.
was listening. Yes.
Yeah. At the end, he talked about how there will be a time that people could still get in on it before it's there's like a 2 week gap, I guess, where they're doing all the administrative Kickstarter does before they finalize, like, okay, here's your payment to go
Mm,
build your stuff. Apparently, in that 2 weeks, you can still make a pledge and get in on that. So I don't know much about that, but there's a chance if somebody was listening and they wanted to get it, which I think you should. It is
you should,
incredible.
for sure.
Yeah, it is amazing. I mean, 22, some of the authors that are in there are authors that I read anyway. They're guys
Hmm.
that I
Same.
buy and read their stuff. And you and I are in on that with our short stories. The Just so cool. And the gratitude of the group, the brotherhood and sisterhood, the family aspect of this group has been really cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. And once again, I already said grateful for being part of it, but I'll make sure the links in the show notes. Go take a look at it.
Mhm.
It still will be within this 2 week period by the time this podcast comes out.
Okay,
So
cool.
go check it
Yeah.
out, and maybe you'll be able to get a late pledge in. Charles, this has been an incredible conversation. I'm so grateful for you and for your time. Before we end here, where can people find more information about you and your books if they want to check you out?
Yeah, two easiest places, my website, charleshack.com. I have two sites there, one for my mysteries and one for the sci-fi. You can pretty much find everything there, but I spend most of my time on Instagram. So people can message me there, they can follow, they can get all kinds of updates. And I just run both series through the same social media, which is a whole nother conversation of, doing two genres. But that's where I'm easiest found is on Instagram all the time.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.